Good afternoon, everybody. Joseph Durham, Certified Bob Ross Instructor. I'm going to be painting for you today the night sky. This is a painting that I've done in the past. It's sort of an adaptation from Certified Bob Ross Instructor Nicholas Hankins, who teaches down at New Smyrna Beach at the Bob Ross workshop down there. Long story short, my daughter came to me one day and she said, "I really want you to paint for me the night sky, Daddy." And so I found a painting that Nick had done, and I really liked it, and sort of just took the idea and ran with it a little bit. But we're gonna have a beautiful night sky up through here, and we're gonna have some trees on either side and in the middle, and we're gonna have a little pond and some bushes down here along the bottom. This is a pre-stretched canvas. It was white, and I just coated it with black gesso. Now, this is different. If we were to start with this right now, just like this, we'd have a little bit of a difficult time with this technique. So we're going to apply a different sort of product. This is a Bob Ross liquid clear oil paint. Okay. And this stuff, it does not take a lot of this at all. Bob always said a jar of this stuff will probably last you all your whole life. Well, it's not going to last me my whole life, you can see, but this has definitely lasted me almost 3 years now. Or I'm sorry, 2 years. And you really don't need a lot of this. When I tell you that less is more, I want to tell you, less is more. If you start out with too much of this stuff, you'll watch your painting just slide right off onto the floor. And all I did was I just barely dipped the bristles of my brush into this liquid clear. And it's easier to go back and get more. It's a lot easier than it is to start off on the wrong foot. I'm just going to take this and just work it all around. Really work it into the canvas. And all that this liquid clear is going to do is it's just going to do the same thing as that liquid white does, only instead it's clear and it's making it nice and slick, and it allows us to blend color right onto our canvas without adding any sort of pigment. Just a little bit more. Got to be careful with that stuff though. I don't want to get too much on there. Now, if you end up getting too much of this on your canvas and it's just really, really sticky, best thing to do is just take a paper towel, crumple it up, and just wipe it off a couple of times. If you do that, you'll have just enough on your canvas. Just keep going over this a couple of times, and that's enough. And that's all we're going to use that liquid clear for. And I'm just going to clean my brush out in odorless thinner. That liquid clear is hard on your brushes. I can tell you that. That's all right. That's why you have multiple brushes. Save one aside if you ever decide to use the liquid clear. You use the liquid clear and use one brush to apply it. Makes things a lot easier. The other thing about using liquid clear and paint thinner is it has a very violent reaction with one another. So if you were to take the same exact brush back up to the canvas, you want to make sure that this is good and dry. And when I say good and dry, I mean you really want to squeeze this a lot to make sure you get all that excess out of there. That way it won't cause you any problems. And we're going to be working with a very limited palette today. And I'm going to start off, I'm going to use my 1-inch brush for this. Normally I wouldn't do this. But as of right now, I've got titanium white, Prussian blue, alizarin crimson, sap green, cadmium yellow, and Indian yellow. And we may add a color or two. We'll just have to see what's going to happen. Now, this is that part of the painting that makes it a lot of fun. Usually we can do this before we start to have people show up, and, well, just watch and find out. You'll see. We'll have a lot of fun. We're going to have a night sky, and we're just going to put in some color. And this is just straight Prussian blue right now. Look at all that paint I've got on that brush. Okay? And you're not going to see this when you start. And it's going to be difficult to see this color. But trust me, it's there. It's there. Doesn't really matter where it ends or where it begins. Just play around with it. Okay? I know I want the top a lot darker than I do everything else. It's going to get a little bit lighter as it comes down. So we've got that Prussian blue on there. And you can see that. You can see those dark streaks of blue that are up through here. Now, without cleaning my brush, I'm going to take the same dirty brush. Let's go into some alizarin crimson. I'm going to tap that in there. Go right up here in the middle. And just move it all around. It doesn't have to be in one particular area. It's okay if you get some of that alizarin crimson into the blue. Bring it on down. Because just like in the sky when you look outside, like I tell my students all the time, don't have straight lines. Okay? It's okay if your colors blend together. It works out better that way. It looks more natural. When you see a tree and out there in your yard, it doesn't just go from one color to another and stop. It doesn't go from one tint of green to another tint of green and stop. I mean, it blends all together. Now I'm going to take this 1-inch brush. I've got all that dark color on, and I am going to clean that. These black canvases are a lot of fun, especially in class. We've done a couple of these here where I teach at home. Beat the devil out of it here. And it's always interesting. I'm going to take my brush, just going to make sure it's good and dry. But back to what I was saying, we start off with those black canvases and you have them put on the one color and then another color, and they're fighting to see if they can even see where that color is at. And sometimes they have a difficult time with it. But eventually it does show up. It's really cool. All right. Now let's just go in here and we're going to take some Indian yellow. Or actually, you know what? Let's do cadmium yellow. Make it a little bit different. Maybe we'll just come right through here. Notice I'm just doing those little X strokes. Notice at how easily that yellow is blending on there. I'll tone that down just a little bit. Add a little bit of that Indian yellow now. Tell you what, let's add a color that we don't normally use a whole lot. Who says we can't have a change of heart, right? Who says we can't change our mind? I'm going to throw in just a little phthalo green. I'm going to clean my brush off here. I could have just grabbed another brush, but it's all right. Let's just add a little of this phthalo green. Oh, who knows where it'll show up. Just never know, do you? All right. What do you think? It looks pretty good, doesn't it? Now let's have some fun. Now let's have some fun. All right. Let's make some magic. I'm going to take a fan brush. I'm just going to put in some titanium white. Okay. Oh. Now, I'm going to set my palette down, and you can just decide where do you want to see a little bit of something. Who knows? Maybe right here. And you just let your brush dance. Okay. I'm going to wipe my brush off, and I'll just remove some of that underlying color. Let's dance in a little bit more. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Just dance it in wherever you want. Just twirl the brush in your hand. That's all you have to do. Now, Let's take that 2-inch brush. Lightly. Very, very lightly. If you hold here on a brush, you have a tendency to apply more pressure. So when I tell my students to apply very light pressure, I tell them to hold all the way back here on the back of the side of the handle. And you're just going to start to wisp these things in. And you can blend this as much as you'd like. And you can create all sorts of things. Maybe we can even do this a little bit here. This is how it is we paint the Aurora Borealis, even. We put all that undercoat on, and then we apply our white. Let me step back here and look. You see that okay? I know it's difficult to see. I think it's pretty. Now, we've blended this in, and we can continue to blend this if we wish. And we can really make this faint. We can make this distant. When you're putting these things in, don't go up there with a purpose. Don't go up there with a set idea in mind or a pattern. Just let your hand be free with it, okay? Let's apply a little more white. By doing this, we can make a couple really stand out, even more prominent. And maybe we have something, oh, I don't know. Where do we, maybe we're going to have trees, and this is going to be our sunset, be our horizon. Maybe. Beat the excess paint off of our brush. And let's just tickle this just a little bit. Just using the edge of our brush. Now look at, you've got already, in just a small amount of time, you've got all that color. We've got some red and some green and blue, and we've allowed that blue and that red to mix. We've got sort of a lavender color. It's beautiful. The finished painting, when I take a picture of this and I'll post it along with it, you'll really see all that a lot better. Well, we can't have a night sky without some stars, can we? No, I don't think so anyway. I don't think so. Gotta have some stars in there. Don't get carried away here on your stars. You can have too many. Well, maybe you can't. Maybe you can't. We'll just see. Putting in our stars is a little interesting. We're going to be using liquid white. and titanium white. And there's really no recipe for this. It is something you just have to play with. And sometimes I get it right on the money, and sometimes it's something you have to work with. But I'm going to take a little bit of this liquid white and put it here on my canvas. And I'm going to grab a little titanium white and put it on my canvas, or on my easel. Keep getting my words all mixed up today. Now, let's see how that is done. Let's see if this will work. I'm just going to take my fan brush and I'm going to use my index finger and I'm just going to flick. Oh, and that's about right. I wish I had better lighting so that you could see. When you do these canvases that are black and you apply that liquid clear, sometimes it gets to be so difficult to take a picture of them sometimes, and especially to record. You can put all these stars in here. By just doing this, it flicks just enough paint. You can put stars almost everywhere. Make sure you do this first. If you do this after the fact, after we put our trees in, you'll end up having stars in your trees. Want to know how I know that? It doesn't take a lot. That's the neat thing. Oh, that's pretty. That's pretty. All right. Well, let's go ahead now. And even though we've got some of our stars down through here, that's okay. Those are all going to get covered. That will get covered up and we'll never know that they were there. But let's go ahead and start working on adding some of our trees now. And for our trees, I'm going to use mountain mixture. Plain old mountain mix. Grab a fan brush here. Just going to use my number 6 fan brush. And this is just a good, healthy, dark color. Watch how I load that fan brush. Back and forth. Back and forth. Okay. Now I want to give the impression that we're looking out. So I'm going to have my trees taller here on the edges and they're going to be coming in. So maybe we'll start with a smaller one right here in the center. Okay. That's a small little straight line. Just using my fan brush to tap that in. using the edge of my brush. Little to no pressure, just lightly tapping. And we're going to add several trees. Next one. And as we get further down to the bottom of our trees, all that we're really doing is we're applying enough paint. We can go back in later to distinguish more and more. We're just applying paint once we get down towards the bottom. It's going to be a little bit taller. Gotta start coming up, don't I? This guy here, he's going to be really tall. And you're not going to see a whole lot of these up here that are up top, but we know they're there. After every tree, I'm reloading my brush back and forth. Put in my tree trunk. I reload my brush, and I just start to tap. And I'm just working my way down the tree. Okay. Let's have a big old tree right there. Just tapping, applying more and more pressure as I come down the tree. More and more. Well, now we've done the right side. I think we need to do the left side. What do you folks think? This isn't a difficult painting to do. If you've never done one of these night skies, I encourage you to try it. You'll be amazed at what you can do. I promise. I wouldn't lie to you. I would not lie to you. Get you a canvas and coat it with some black gesso, or you can even buy black canvases that are already pre-coated. These are a lot of fun to do. A lot of fun to do. And if you have friends or family over, a great thing to do is go ahead and coat it with some liquid clear, your canvas. Put some of that underlying color on. Put your red and your green and your blues already on. And don't tell them that it's there, okay? And tell them you want to sit down and show them a painting. and start to apply some of that white and watch all that color appear, you tell you what, they'll think you're a magician. All right, keep going here. Add some more trees. We're going to get taller and taller. Just tapping. And there's no set description. There's no right and there's no wrong as to where it is you put in your little galaxies. You can have it anywhere, everywhere. Blend it out as much as you want to the first time. Go back in there and throw in some more and make them more prominent. The things that they're finding out in space anymore are so neat. I keep getting alerts on my phone. I've got a news app, and every time I turn around, they have found something new. They have found a new black hole. They have found a new meteor, a new comet that they didn't know that was going to enter. In fact, we just had a comet that we could have seen had we had decent weather that we hadn't seen for quite some time. What was it, 10,000 years or something like that? I can't remember what it was. Now I am going to change a couple of things here. These trees need to be further back. So these trees here, I'm just going to extend these. Here's going to come down. Same thing with these. And this is just applying paint. You're just, even though you don't see it, where it is that you'll really determine all of this is when you are going and you highlight your trees, when you highlight all those boughs. Tell you what, let's make this a big old tree. Oh, he's going to be a big one. He's going to be strong. And unless you're really up on your canvas, you can't hardly see all of that paint. But you know it's there, don't you? If you like what you see, make sure you subscribe. I'm going to start doing more and more of these videos and try to get on here as much as I possibly can. I enjoy doing these. They're a lot of fun. Now, I won't have any videos coming up here. May do a few shorts here and there, but really won't be having any videos towards the end of this month come on, because I am actually going to be in Indiana at the Bob Ross Experience, and I'm going to be taking my floral certification. I'm really excited about that. Really, really excited about that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a whole nother technique than painting landscapes. I can tell you that. I have done a total of 3 florals, and I learned something each and every time. I'm sure I have a lot to learn now. All right. Well, let's have some more fun. I'll be out there for 5 days during week 1. It's fundamentals of floral painting. dry off my 1-inch brush here. I'm just going to put in some underlying color. I'm going to put in some phthalo blue, or I'm sorry, some Prussian blue. And it's just like it was before. Really not going to see a whole lot of it at first. We'll make it stand out though, I promise. Should have added this prior to. Let's take that 1-inch brush and just go into a little titanium white. Come up here, straight down. Okay. Same thing. Let's take a dry 2-inch brush and we'll just lightly. Shoot, if you want to, you can even make that come down even a little bit further if you wanted. I don't think I want to though. I really like how that is. Of course, I say that and then I do it. That's the great thing about oil painting. You can constantly change your mind. Bob said you can move mountains and trees and rivers. You can determine what your world is like. Right here. Right here. All right. Let's not fiddle with it too much. If we fiddle too much, we'll end up ruining it. Now I mentioned let's have some bushes and things down through here, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to highlight some of our trees. I'm just going to gather up all of that dark mixture that I've got. I'm just going to put it back down on the palette. Sometimes you need to have all that gathered up. It makes things a lot easier for you. I'm going to take that 1-inch brush and just going to run it straight through. Watch how I load this, okay? I'm holding my brush straight on, and I'm just going to go through one side. Here, let's do it this way. So you see the logo, the Bob Ross 1-inch landscape on the handle here. Okay, so I'm going to pull my brush straight through all of that. I'm going to lift it up, pull it back through again, lift it straight up, pull it again, lift it straight up, and if you turn your brush over, one side will be curved. That's the key to making all of those little hills and ridges in your bushes. Now, you're not going to see this a great deal at first, no different than you did in your trees or you did your background color. And you're just going to come up here and just push, okay? And you're just adding, what is it that Bob always said? You have to have the dark in order to show the light. Well, we're adding some dark. I'm going to take my brush, going back with that 1-inch landscape facing me. I'm going to load my brush, pulling it straight down. Okay, so remember that 1-inch brush, Bob Ross symbol, is right here facing me. I'm going to just rotate my brush to the right, and all of that paint at that curve will be at the top. I'll come over here and just bend it upwards. Okay. All right. Now that we've got that, let's go ahead and take, we've got all of that dark color on our brush, and the mountain mixture is nothing more than Prussian blue, Van Dyke brown, alizarin crimson, and midnight black. Well, if you take all that, and we're going to add some cadmium yellow to it, but first, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the corner of my brush and I'm going to dip it into a little bit of liquid white. And that's just going to thin my paint down. Come up here. Let's see what kind of green we can get. You may have to add a little bit of green. Let's add a little sap green. We want it to be a little bit darker. Loading my brush the same way. Okay. Make it a little bit darker. Little pressure. Lots of paint, light pressure. So there's the logo. I'm going to go through the paint one direction. And when you lift your brush off, you should see all of those little hills and valleys in the paint. Well, all of that paint is right there, and you should have that same exact effect on the bottom of your brush. And this is where it is that you come up here and think about this very carefully. You don't just come up here and start going like this. Think of some sort of pattern to work into. And don't cover up everything that you've put in. Light pressure. Maybe there's one right there. You can really get creative with some of these paintings like this. Shoot, we could have taken some of this color and just brought it all the way down, cut it off at the center almost, and had a reflection in the water. Maybe we'll have to do that. All right, I like that. I like that. Now remember, this is a night sky, so we don't want to get it too bright. So I think what we're going to do now, let's do a couple of things. We're going to take our palette knife, and you can give the indication that there's a lot more trees here than we actually made by taking your palette knife and just running it up through. You run it through that paint, and you create all of these extra trees almost. All right, to that dark mix that we had before that we used to create our trees, we're just going to add green to it. Remember, this is a night scene. We want to keep this dark. Very, very dark. So I've just added sap green to that mix. And you can add as much or as little as you want. It's up to you. Maybe you don't want to add any sap green. Maybe you don't want to add a highlight to your tree, and that's okay too. You don't have to. It's your world. You're not going to notice it a whole lot anyway. Don't cover up everything. Don't cover up everything. It's not going to be very prominent. These trees are so dark. These are some of my favorite paintings to do. I love these night skies. But I know I've said it several times already, and I'll say it one more time. There's just so many things you can do with this. We could have added a moon. We could add you know, shoot, maybe a big old cabin in there sometime. Maybe we'll have to do that in another one. Not in this one. Not today. One last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in a few little water lines. I'm going to take my palette knife. Remember how we had that titanium white? I'm going to take a little titanium white, liquid white, and mix the two together. It's got a nice little rollout. Holding my knife flat, I'm just working my way down the canvas. The canvas will take what it wants. Back through. Hold that knife flat. If you hold that knife lopsided, your water is just going to pour right off of the canvas. You won't like that. And if you see one that you don't like, or if you create a water line that's just a little too much, wipe your knife off and just go right back over top of it. Oh, I know what I forgot. I forgot to put any red out on my palette. I always sign all my paintings in red. Why? Well, that's how Bob did it. I bet you thought there was another reason, didn't you? No, there's not another reason. There's not another reason. All right. I'll share something else with you. When you take and you go to sign your name, I'm going to use my strip liner brush. Okay? Just like Bob. Right here's my red. So I'm going to take my brush and go straight into my paint thinner. From there, right over my bright red. And you may have to do it a couple of times. You may have to go into your paint thinner and back out. And I'm going to have to do it one more time. And you want it to be the consistency of water almost, just like ink. Twirl that brush in that ink, or in that paint. I said ink though, didn't I? Using just the tip of the brush. I'm going to come up here. And sometimes you have to play with it. Just because you have your paint thin enough, you have to make sure you have the right amount of pigment in your brush just the same. Otherwise, it won't matter how thin you have it. You'll have more thinner than you will paint. Let's take the camera here. Let's just turn this a little bit. Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this today. Hope you guys give this a try. This is a lot of fun. And if you've never done one like this, I encourage you to do so. Oh, wow, that got really bright, didn't it? I really encourage you to do so. You'll be amazed at what it is you can do. Have fun, guys. Be safe. Be careful out there. Hopefully everyone's having some good weather. Take care, okay?